Something really unexpected happened yesterday. Normally it's not something I would share so publicly as it's happening. However, I started this channel knowing that I would be using Maisy in a lot of my content, my beautiful girl. I've been aware that she's getting older, been wanting to share her story with you. I don't know how that story is going to end. So I'll just start. So when I was a new grad vet, I was working in a large hospital in a city it was GP practice, but it was connected to an after-hours service. And so we'd get a lot of critical cases come in, and I was the hospital vet one Monday morning, always dealing with a few cases that get handed over when I come in the morning. Start at 7 in the morning, do rounds together with the overnight vet, and this beautiful girl, ragdoll kitten named Maisy, was a trauma case from the day before. She'd fallen 10 stories. We call it high rose syndrome, and it's something that cats can survive. It's miraculous. There's something about them falling either less than 2 stories or more than 10 that's supposed to be protective. So yeah, Maisy had fallen 10 stories out a window, and her poor owner came home to find her there and alive. And she had a shattered radius and ulna, so just below her elbow. She had a chipped canine tooth. She had a purple bruised belly and ended up with ulcers on her eyes. Not sure if that was from the impact or just from being given medication that made her not blink. And the specialist surgeons had advised, don't even attempt a surgical repair of her fracture. It was best to do amputation, and the poor owners, it was very emotional, obviously, and then finances did come into it, as often does happen, because we just don't have the subsidies that we have in human health. And she was young, and the philosophy in her family was that just best to put the cat to sleep, and that wasn't something she wanted to do. And she sort of went back and forth, and I gave her the option of surrender if you're unable to pay for treatment. But the prognosis was good. Cats do well as 3-legged. It's amazing how well they can do. And there was nothing else wrong with her. Those other minor injuries were, easy to come back from. And she was so young and so sweet. And so the decision was eventually made. She was signed over to the clinic, and as a new graduate vet, she was actually my first ever orthopedic surgery. So I did the amputation on her front leg, mid-humeral amputation. So we leave like the shoulder joint, which actually in animals there's no bone like we have in humans. Just interesting fact there. They don't have a clavicle. Cats have only just got like a remnant of one. That's how they're just so flexible, and they have the quadrate posture, like very different to people. She was at the clinic for a couple of weeks being, managed, recovering from her surgery. And I actually had been wanting a cat for a little while. And my beautiful old dog was becoming pretty old and had a lot of health conditions, and I thought, okay, maybe it is time. And I did feel a bit strange about it initially, as I'd been involved in the surrender, but it just did seem to be meant to be. So I brought Maisy home, and didn't realise on the day it was actually her first birthday. And she settled in really well, made herself right at home very quickly. She got to meet Honey, who sadly passed away about 3 months later. My girl was nearly 15, and she fought. She was a fighter. She was the most beautiful dog. Just, some pets really do touch your heart in such a special way and help you through some really difficult times, and they're just that unconditional love There's nothing like it. So I brought Maisy home. After a little while, I went on this big trip and she was staying with my mum and her cat, and I found she wanted to play with my mum's older girl cat. And when I came across Nico at work with a similar situation of surrender and, talking about euthanasia and at the emergency centre and a fractured leg, and then he got a urinary blockage, I thought, I kind of felt a bit sorry for him. And he was so friendly, and thought, I guess Maisy wants a friend, and I brought him home, and much to my husband's horror. And yeah, sadly, he was actually a little bit annoying, and Maisy did not take to him very well. And he would try and play with her, but he would bite so hard. They have learnt to tolerate each other. Maisy's generally been healthy. She's had, some minor immune issues. She's had resorptive lesions in her teeth. She's had a food responsive enteritis, so like a food allergy where she needs a special low allergy diet that keeps her from vomiting. And more recently, she's developed like a skin allergy, and she's been having steroid treatment for that. And cats usually tolerate steroid treatment much better than dogs. They have different receptors, so they don't tend to get as much of the excess thirst and lethargy and things that dogs get. And it was one day my family were visiting, and they said, Maisy looks small. And it's something you don't really notice when you see them every day. And she's fluffy, so she hides her true size. And it wasn't until I actually weighed her, so took her into the clinic and got her on the baby scales. I was like, yeah, she really has. Because she's always just maintained her weight. She's a grazer, she doesn't guts her food. And yeah, she's never been as thin as she was when I first adopted her. Like a normal ragdoll, she's grown. I thought, oh gosh, it must be the steroids, it can cause like sarcopenia, like muscle loss. And kind of thought, should probably look into that. And then I brought her in, and she gained weight again. I thought, okay, we'll leave it for now. I'm probably a bit paranoid. Like I put poor Honey through a lot of things when, worrying. As a vet, you just think of the worst case scenario, and you want to throw everything at it, like everything you possibly can, to keep them living as long as possible, because they just don't live long enough compared to us, most of us. And so anyway, we finally got there with the ultrasound yesterday. I was expecting some sort of gastrointestinal, like gut disease, because of, her history, how common that is. But yeah, I'm lucky enough to work with a specialist, feline medicine practitioner, and he performed the ultrasound and told me really bad news, really sad news, that she's got inoperable malignant liver cancer. And we can do some more testing. However, the treatment wouldn't necessarily change, and she might live for a while, she might not. It's just absolutely devastating. I'm going to look into some other options and radiation, because it is just hard to accept. And so, yeah, stay tuned and just see how we go with Maisy. And life is precious, so give your beautiful, beautiful babies a hug. See you next time.